everyone, it's Eliana and I have a fall card to share with you today. This is the second time I've recorded this voiceover because I forgot to change the mic setting on my computer. So this is go number 2. I'm going to be using the Concord and 9th Autumn Inlaid die. And the die is a tiny bit bigger than A2, at least that's what I think it is. And so I'm using a piece of Kraft cardstock that's just a little bit bigger so that I don't have to worry about the edges of the card. Now I am saving the acorns and I'm using Post-it tape to hold the pieces in place. And there are two acorns in the middle of the card, and so I'm adding those together so that I know which ones go where and I'm not confused in having to figure out which piece goes where. I set aside the rest of the pieces and I won't be using them, but you could if you wanted to. Now you can cut this all with white cardstock and ink blend each piece to be a different color, but then it's quite the struggle to get all the pieces to look the same. So I kind of just cheated a little bit and I used colored cardstock. So I'll go over the colors when I do the ink blending. But for now, we're just going to do some shading on the acorns and on the card base. So it's been a while since I've made card, and I'm not that great with my videoing, so I forget that I'm not in shot. So I'm removing all the little pieces to make room on my desk so that I could move to the center. I'm using my Bitty blender from Rabbit Hole, and I just went around the edges of the cardstock just to add a little bit of dimension around where the leaves would be. I'm taking a piece of Tailored Expression Express-It paper, and this is cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so that leads me to believe that this card panel is bigger than an A2 card size. So I'm just going to pull up the edges so that I could add a little bit of adhesive to the edges, and I'm just using 1/4 inch score tape. That way all of my pieces go all the way to the very edge and they won't accidentally get caught on the edge of the card or fall off my card front. I did add the backer back onto it so that dust would not stick to my sticky tape. Now I'm taking all of the little acorns and I'm going to shade them with some Latte Ink color from Tailored Expression. And I'm not being very specific and being fancy with the shading or anything. I'm just shading it just so that it looks different than the Kraft cardstock because it's all the same cardstock. And for the top of the acorn, I'm using the Hot Fudge ink from Tailored Expression. The Hot Fudge and the Latte are from their latest ink color release for fall. And so I thought since they're new, I'm just going to go ahead and use them. And I am shading it a little bit darker than normal. I did pop those pieces into the card panel. And because I kept everything separate, I knew which acorn went in what area. Now I'm taking this leaf here and I used Tailored Expression Mango, but you can pretty much use any yellow cardstock because you are going to be using that as your base to do the ink blending. And I'm using candy corn just to get that fall changing of the leaves color. And I don't know if this is the color that this kind of leaf is, but I just picked some colors that I liked, and I don't care if it's like accurate. I don't know if this leaf is supposed to be yellow or if it's supposed to be red, but I just picked colors that I liked. So there you go. So I'm just going to be going around the edges and I'm trying to stay lighter in the middle. And I'm going to do all of the yellow pieces the same way with the candy corn. Oh, it feels good to pause for a little bit. I just felt like I was talking and talking. Now I can catch my breath. Oh, here we go now. This is dragon fruit. So dragon fruit for Tailored Expression and Concord and Ninth, it's the same color. So you could use either brand. And I'm using the cherry pop to add some color around this leaf. If you know what kind of leaf this is or what these leaves are, go ahead and leave it in the comments and let me know if I got the right colors for them. For the green, I use dill pickle and I use cilantro to shade it. And you can tell that I just went at it and I didn't really pay attention to the shading because that green leaf there looks kind of like really sloppy. I did cut out the entire panel with gold cardstock just because the little pieces to keep them straight was just a lot of work. So I figured I'm just going to cut the whole panel. And I used inexpensive gold cardstock from Michael's. It's from like the Recollections. So it's very inexpensive. So I wasn't scared to, use up my stash. So I'm just going to pop these in. And I'm going to brayer them in. When you do die cuts, you'll notice that the piece is always a little bit smaller than where you got to place it. And that's because the blade of the die is cutting that paper. And so there's always going to be a tiny little bit of a gap. But with the gold cardstock, you could brayer that in and it kind of spreads out that gold cardstock. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add all these little leaves. So you can see that it didn't matter that my leaf was sloppy. It looks fine, once it's all put together. And not to mention that the sentiment is going to go right over that anyways. So you can save the little pieces of the gold for another project if you want. They are pretty. You probably put them like in another panel with different colors and have some leaves be gold. And this is the last piece here, and I'm just going to make sure that it's butted up right up against there, and I'm going to add that gold piece and then I'm going to brayer it in. So like I said, this was the easiest way to make a card with all these fiddly little pieces and not have to, pull my hair out. So I'm just pushing everything in, and now I'm going to trim this, and I didn't make sure that my die was exactly straight, and so I'm going to use my Miss T ruler to cut it out. And you can see that because it's almost completely flat in the back, it will catch on paper, but I'm going more with the design of the card, and I'm just going to hold it in place, and then I'm just going to trim this one side, and then once I get one side straight, then I can go over to my roto trimmer and I can trim the other three sides and know that I have a straight card. So I'm just going to be cleaning up my desk for a little bit. And now I'm going to add a little bit of distressing to my card panel. And I'm using a rabbit hole brush to go around the edges. And I'm trying not to be in one spot for too long because I figured I'm just going to keep going in circles around the edges until I like the depth of color that I add on the edges. And so you can kind of see where some of the dies you can see a little bit of a gap, and that's because of the blade. But you can't really notice it on the card, so just ignore it. So once I go around the card, I'm going to go around one more time and just add a little bit more color, and you can see how it's all coming together. And now I'm going to add a little bit of splatter. I thought this was going to be a good idea, but I mean, it needed something. So I just thought, well, yeah, I'll add a little bit of gold. And maybe it's just I didn't like the shade of gold I picked, but I flicked some on and just set it aside to dry. So I'm going to add my sentiment now. And believe it or not, there's no stamping in this video. I'm going to use some vellum for the backer, and then I'm going to cut the rest of the pieces out of that scrap cardstock that was left on the edge of the card front. So I'm just taking my bone folder and I'm trying to get the little nubbies. They're little pokey holes that cause a dent in your panel when you die cut it. So I just removed those with my brayer tool, and now I'm using my glue press to adhere my pieces together. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add one to the gold piece, and then I'm going to stack the other three together and create a layer that will pop off the front of the cardstock, so it gives you a little bit of dimension and it's not so flat. I have my mini Misty here, and I'm just going to use the back of it to hold my piece in place with my bar magnet. Sorry for the shaking of the camera. I had to open the cabinet and I banged the camera, and so that's why you see the shaking. So I'm going to add this 2-layered piece to my vellum, and for some reason my light turned off and I have no idea why. But I'm just going to add this to that little piece of vellum, and it's just enough dimension with that one extra piece to pop it off the vellum. I don't want it to be so flat, and I'm going to use my magnet to hold it in place. Then I'm going to add the stack of 3 to the back of the vellum, and so now it's going to lift the vellum off the card front. And there went my light again. And so when I do this, when I add it to the front of my card, it's going to lift up that vellum just a little bit and give you a little bit of dimension. And you don't have to worry about hiding adhesive behind the vellum because you're putting the adhesive on the cardstock. And here I'm just adjusting a little bit because it was a little crooked. And there went my light again. Okay, so I'm just going to add it to the front of the card, and hopefully it's straight because I didn't pay much attention to it because I was focused on the card. I was focused on the light. So all I have to do is add it to the front of a panel and we are all done. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this card video, and be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Have a great day. Bye.